Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the Surrey Board of Trade. I'm Anita Huberman, CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade. I'm also an honorary captain of the Royal Canadian Navy appointed by Canada's Defence Minister. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the treaty territory of the Tsawwassen First Nations and the unceded territory of our Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Kwanlin-Kaitsi and Semiahmoo First Nations. I'd like to welcome our co-host today, the South Asian Business Association, otherwise known as SABA, a dedicated community group of volunteers that really instigate action on a variety of levels to different levels of government and different community projects. We do a lot of collaborative work together to ensure together that Surrey is an opportunity city. Events like this don't happen without sponsorship. Thank you so much to the BC Salmon Farmers Association for your support. The sponsors of the Surrey Board of Trade's Business and International Trade Center are the law firm of Fasken, BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada, and the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan, represented by SNF Benefits. Some government officials that I'd like to recognize on the call with us this afternoon are, and thank you all for attending. Member of Parliament for Fleetwood Port Kells, Ken Hardy. Representing Tamara Jansen, MP for Cloverdale Langley City, is Shanjaleen Davidi. Takeo Von Papta, MP for Langley Aldergrove. Gary Begg, MLA for Surrey Guildford. Representing Trevor Halford, MLA for Surrey White Rock, is Effie Cerise. His Worship, Dennis Dugas, Mayor of Port Hardy. City of Surrey Councillors, Linda Annis and Stephen Pettigrew. City of West Vancouver Councillor, Sharon Thompson. District of Port Hardy Councillor, John Tidbury. And thank you also to Frank Flood, our Consul General of Ireland based in Vancouver. Ladies and gentlemen, all attendees are muted. If you do have a question for the speaker and the panelists, please put it in the chat function of this technology. If we're unable to get to your question, an answer will be sent to you after the session is over by email. Just a little bit about the Surrey Board of Trade. We are Surrey's city building business organization, and we work collaboratively with, of course, the South Asian Business Association to support business, bring business into our city. Surrey is going to be the largest city in British Columbia by 2030, and we're doing absolutely everything we can to ensure that the majority of Surrey residents can live, learn, work, and play in our city. We have the only pandemic rapid response business center supported by the BC government in British Columbia to be that concierge of connections and instigate change at the different levels of government. We are on the Economic Recovery Minister's COVID-19 industry engagement table for British Columbia, again to identify gaps and opportunities during the pandemic and beyond as we go towards economic recovery. And we have a direct line into the Prime Minister's office to ensure that we're doing the same thing, identifying gaps and opportunities during the pandemic. So ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, we're all about making sure that Surrey is an opportunity city. And we wanted to bring you a perspective about an industry impact that is not only facing the Discovery Islands, the Vancouver Island region, but has a cyclical effect on jobs and businesses right here in Surrey. Surrey, as you may know, has the greatest number of manufacturers in British Columbia, and we're a border city. And as a result of a decision that happened in December by the federal government to end salmon farming on the Discovery Islands, there has been an impact to our businesses, our jobs right here in Surrey, and that matters to the Surrey Board of Trade. That matters to the South Asian Business Association. So we wanted to bring you this perspective and a chance to dialogue with all of you about what is happening and our advocacy right now through the Surrey Board of Trade. We're one of the 10 largest chambers, boards of trades in Canada. So our voice matters to have a pause on this decision while we're saving businesses, while we're saving jobs in Surrey, but also on Vancouver Island as well, and other areas that have been impacted as a result of this decision. So to tell us more about the future and the economic impact of the salmon farming industry and its supply chain impact in Surrey, British Columbia, please help me welcome the Executive Director of the BC Salmon Farmers Association, John Paul Fraser. John, over to you.
Thank you very much, Anita. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and we're honored to be sponsoring this very important discussion. And we don't expect it to end here, but hopefully we can start a really good dialogue today. I'm going to ask my colleague Michelle France to take control of the screen because we have a fun and hopefully informative presentation that we'd like to run by everyone today. Exciting audio visual elements as well. And so we hope technology doesn't conspire against us. So again, thank you for having us. Next slide, Michelle. I want to also thank Anita's team in getting us here today. All the preparation is very much appreciated. Also want to thank the South Asian Business Association for agreeing to co-host today's conversation. I'm also joined very happily by some great folks who've worked really hard and are very concerned about the issues to discuss today with everyone. My friend Dean Dabrowski from OA Canada West is joining us. Ravi Johal from Sure Cold Refrigeration has joined us. Josh Plamondon from Aquapac has joined us as well. Three businesses based in Surrey for a number of years, very concerned about the decision. We're joined as well by Doug Blair of Rias Inc., who's our economist, and my colleague Michelle France from the BC Salmon Farmers Association, our manager of community communications and partnerships. So what brings us here today? Well, why don't we take a trip into YouTube and give you a bit of a presentation and an overview of what's transpired and why we're having this conversation.
Right now, jobs are very important and we have limited jobs because of COVID. If we will not gonna have this job or this work, we will not have anything.
All of us are just a few paychecks away from not knowing how we're gonna pay our bills.
I bought a house, I have a family, my boy is just 5 months old. It's my duty to give them a good life. Everything is gonna be shattered. I spoke to my friends. They were like, hey, but that's not gonna happen because Trudeau supported the Indian farmers who is protesting in India. Trudeau is our guy. He's gonna support us. We always look to Trudeau, and when we heard he is not supporting farmers, he's using it as a political weapon to gain something, we don't know whom should we trust. They are supposed to support people. If they can't do anything, what's the point of being a politician? There are many people like me who come into this country looking for a better future, and if they don't have jobs, what's the whole point of coming to this country?
Thank you, Michelle. So we heard from Kushpreet and Ravi, who we'll hear from later, who's joined us, and Manu. These are folks who are very, very concerned about this decision and really the uncertainty that it's created for them, for their colleagues, for their friends, and for their families. It's a very, very stressful time. Next slide. So we're proud to be part of the BC's vibrant salmon farming food production sector. Very proud to be a part of the Surrey economy. Interestingly, salmon farming and salmon are a huge part of the economy, and Surrey is a big part of that. Just a quick little slide here. Michelle. You'll see that right now, actually, salmon products and farm salmon products are the #1 agricultural seafood and food and beverage export in Canada, in British Columbia. We are the leaders. And if we picked out a few other from the long list of categories that some are familiar in and around the Lower Mainland region, Surrey as well, peppers, tomatoes, chicken, pork, blueberries. Salmon is actually a larger contributor to in this category than all of those combined. It's a significant industry in British Columbia. Next slide. So just want to give you a little bit of a snapshot of salmon farming. I know for a lot of folks on today's call, this is probably a new subject, so we'll quickly just give you a bit of a context. So right now, as we just saw, we're the #1 agricultural export. We contribute about $1.6 billion to the provincial economy. So right up there in the agricultural industry sector, we are right at the very top. We work hand in hand with local Indigenous communities. We're very committed to UNDRIP principles. We've got about 70 members. They're active in farming and in a variety of businesses associated with salmon production. We sustain directly, indirectly, and through induced employment about 6,500 family supporting jobs really throughout British Columbia. Every farmer has been certified by at least one third-party organization, so that's important. And we've invested and continue to invest significant amount of money in new technology, innovation, skills training, sort of calculated between 2016 and 2022, about $500 million in that kind of investment. I will say, however, that a lot of that investment is now stalled. I'll also say that what you see here is a picture of an industry that in a pandemic is essential, declared as such by government, provincially and federally. The workers, the food, the activities, essential in a pandemic. Yet we got the decision that we got. Next slide. You know, sometimes it's noted that the industry operates kind of fast and loose. That's really about as far from the truth as really I've ever heard in my time. Next slide, Michelle. You'll see actually in that slide, Dr. Tara McDonald, who's out there today, a veterinarian at Moe Canada West. We are an extremely highly regulated industry. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but as you can see, we're managed through a rigorous process of complex regulatory processes governed by the federal and provincial governments, the federal government in particular. We're under the legislative authority of the Fisheries Act. DFO, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, oversees licensing of all our sites in order to operate. We work in partnership with the province, and the province also reviews applications for fish transfers. The tenuring of farms is managed by the province. We have conditions of license that covers all levels of activity on a site, from fish health to sea lice to containment measures to reporting to environmental management. So this is a level of regulation and transparency that really holds the industry to a really high level of account. And we wanted to show you another little video to say, why do we go through all of that? We have to go through all that. We want to go through all that. We need to go through all that because we operate in the marine environment. But hopefully you'll get a sense here of what that looks like when you operate safely in a strong regulatory environment. So let's meet Kelly.
It's really important before you make any opinions on the aquaculture industry that you get out and actually see what's getting done. My name is Kelly Coral. I'm the Director of Training for Dive Safe International. We train divers for a number of different industries, including aquaculture. Aquaculture is an essential service, and divers are essential to the salmon farms. The environmentalists have really held the industry accountable, and I can see that the practices have really changed. The focus of the salmon farms now is to have almost laboratory-like conditions. I've done numerous dives below the pens where the bottom is now alive. There's crab and nudibranch and sea pens and sea stars on the bottom. And the salmon farmers themselves have a vested interest in protecting the ocean and protecting that environment. It's a very, very clean, very sustainable, very responsible industry.
So we thank Kelly for that. That's why we do what we do. That's where you hope the regulations get you in terms of environmental integrity. Talking to Kelly recently, he talked about the laboratory-like conditions in and around a farm, any farm that he's ever dived under, and he's been doing it, as he says, for very many years. And he's not in the industry. He works with the industry. He is telling you exactly what he sees. And what the changes, the improvements that he's experienced, and he's seen firsthand. And I guess most of the folks on the call today, probably many of whom have not even been to any of these communities, certainly haven't been on a farm, and I probably fewer than that have been under a farm. Lots get said and written about it, but it's good to have Kelly who's down there who can report to everyone. And also, you see that what we try to do is have, as best as we can, limited mortality events. So evidence presented from fish data through DFO's own reporting indicates that mortality events are overwhelmingly due to environmental and mechanical, which is like handling type conditions and incidents, rather than disease, because we work hard to manage those things. And so, we're proud of our record and we're proud of the work that we do. Next slide. So from land to ocean to Surrey and then to the world, just a quick idea, like how does Surrey actually fit into the whole picture of aquaculture? Because we just went up there and saw Kelly up in Campbell River region. What does that have to do with Surrey? Well, let's have a quick look here. So this is sort of the cycle of salmon farming over a course of about 5 years. And it goes from harvesting all the way down to processing, that 5-year period. Surrey plugs in right at the beginning. Surrey actually contributes one of the biggest inputs to aquaculture, and that is food. Cargill, our member just down the road from MP Dhaliwal's office, is a major producer of feed for the industry right there in Surrey. Much of the fish will come back into Surrey for processing. So Surrey is an input, and then it receives the finished product for processing in a multiple of ways. So Dean's folks do that work. You've got refrigeration. That's Ravi. You got distribution and transport and packaging. That's Josh. That is a lot of business in Surrey, going out, coming in, and then going out to the world. Surrey has become a real hub of activity for the industry. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about this decision and the consequences of it. You may have read about it. You may have seen about it. You may have seen Facebook ads from us and other people about it. Let's get a little more information. Next slide, please, Michelle. So Cohen Commission, won't belabor this, but there was a long process, started around 2011, that looked into the collapse of the Fraser River sockeye, a major Royal Commission recommendation that came out that if such farms pose at most a minimal risk to serious harm the health of migrating Fraser River sockeye salmon, the minister should not allow them to stay. And that decision needed to be made in September 2020. So the government then proceeded to do a whole variety of risk assessments, independent risk assessments, and concluded out at the end of 2020. And the conclusion from the science to the minister was the results of these assessments concluded that the transfer of these pathogens pose a minimal risk to abundance and diversity of migrating Fraser River sockeye salmon in the area. So we work all these years under a recommendation called 19 that gives us some assurance that science will guide decisions. Science came forward with their recommendations, but didn't ultimately guide this decision. Next slide. The decision was different. The decision was to phase out existing salmon farm facilities in the Discovery Islands, and that's over an 18-month period. I just showed you earlier how the industry operates in 3 to 5 year cycles. So to make a decision to close down a sector in 18 months, half that, if not more than that, is the period that we have to execute this decision. So, sorry, less than half. So it's totally disruptive in terms of the actual cycle of the sector, how it would operate and how it can move and how it can transition. On top of that, despite the fact that science would indicate that there's no risk, despite the regulatory environment that I showed you that governs our activities, despite the photos that Kelly just showed you under the farms, the minister ordered that no new fish of any size can be introduced. So that means that the fish that are in the hatcheries have nowhere to go. No transfer, no final transfer. And that the farms all had to be free of fish by June 30th, so complete the harvest. So only the fish currently in the pens at the time of the decision could stay. Next slide. So the consequences are real. That's 25% like that of an entire industry's production gone in 18 months. Imagine the forest industry being told without consultation, and we had 15 minutes notice, without consultation that you've got 18 months to deal with 1/4 of a lost production with no plan and no offer of assistance. And by the way, that decision was made 5.5 months ago. Not a single telephone call or piece of correspondence from the federal government has been replied to. We're looking in the Discovery Islands area, about 1,500 jobs gone or threatened. And these are good paying jobs. In the middle of a pandemic, when you've been declared essential, that's going to have about potentially an impact of about $380 million, a significant GDP impact for that region, a significant tax revenue impact, a significant impact on over 250 suppliers in that region, and a lot of lost and spending gone down the tubes. It's just going to happen because of the impact. We're also looking at, and this is probably beyond this number, if we can't figure out the transfer decision, about well over 10 million salmon will be euthanized. So no meals, fertilizer, garbage, not food. It has about $170 million loss in impact. It is well over 200 million meals. Next slide. So let's look at this. So total salmon production really on average measured in 2019 about 88,000 tons. So the approximate production that's distributed, that's about 35,000 of those stays here in Canada. The rest goes to markets in the United States and elsewhere. That's about 140 meal equivalents for Canadians. This decision will actually take 34 million meal equivalents away from Canadian tables. Where will that salmon come from? Will it come from other countries? Will it be more wild salmon from other jurisdictions? Maybe even ours. Does that seem like the solution? It's not a solution. It's a problem. Next slide. And the impact here in Surrey, just to going to get to you now. We are looking, so when we were actually presenting a lot of this information to mayors, councils, regional districts, local chambers, Rotaries, they said, geez, it'd be really great if people in Vancouver had a chance to understand the impact of this decision, because they never seem to listen to us. And then that sort of light bulb went off, and we went and started looking at some of the numbers and started talking to Ravi and Josh and others to realize, well, actually, you know what, this is going to be a real thing for us. And now we have a story, and we need to tell this story in the Lower Mainland. And maybe if we tell this story here, the government that doesn't seem to be responding to us in any way might actually pick up the phone. So we're looking at $220 million in annual revenue generated by 6 companies. This is the footprint. I'm not suggesting this is all gone. I'm suggesting this is the actual footprint for the industry. We've got $46 million in GDP generated annually. There's about 340 direct jobs in Surrey right now associated with aquaculture. It has an indirect and induced impact that allows for 850 jobs to be generated as a result. Over 90% of the revenue generated by the 6 companies that we've worked with is from salmon farming. So they are in this business. And BC Salmon Farmers purchased about $250 million in goods and services from businesses in Surrey. So our industry buys a lot of stuff from Surrey. It matters. What happens? But this decision matters in Surrey. Next slide. And this is the sort of integrated nature. We call this the spiderweb diagram. You can see just how integrated the industry is in terms of direct and indirect and induced jobs. These are all the businesses. These are all the connection points that exist right now. And the economy is fragile, especially when the economy this is an economic ecosystem that's fragile, particularly when you're in a pandemic. And these strings are getting pulled now, folks. And there's connections. And we're going to see over time what this decision contributes in terms of those strings being pulled. Next slide. So enough of me. I'm not in Surrey at the moment, but I'd like to introduce you folks who work in Surrey and feel the impact of this decision. And I'm going to ask my friend Dean Dabrowski to say a few words.
Thanks, John. I'm just trying to get my video going here. There we go. Thank you, John. Thank you, Anita and the South Asian Business Association for having us here today and for allowing us to explain the very real and very immediate issues that are facing the salmon farming sector, and particularly those in Surrey today. As you've heard, the massively destructive decision from Minister Jordan has placed a tremendous strain on our workers, on their families and the businesses and the communities that depend on the sector. It was only 12 months ago that Prime Minister Trudeau named our industry as an essential food producer. And on December 17th, with 15 minutes notice, Minister Jordan announced this decision. Only 1 week before Christmas, we were blindsided, our employees were devastated, and effectively, this cancels 30% of Moe's business in British Columbia. Minister Jordan's decisions have put over 1,500 jobs and more than 200 million meals at risk, as John has gone through in great detail. For Moe specifically, since the Christmas announcement, we have had to stop over $110 million planned in capital investment. This decision has definitely chilled future investment in rural coastal BC. We have had to kill nearly 1 million fish, approximately 18 million high quality protein meals. We've received an injunction. We went to court and received an injunction allowing us to transfer fish, only to have the minister come back again and rewrite the rules again, and now leaving us looking at killing another 100 or 500,000 fish in the upcoming weeks. And thus far, tragically, we have more than 50 employees that are no longer in our company, and this is just the start. As essential workers, our folks have worked diligently, proudly produced food during the pandemic without one COVID workplace exposure. Since the announcement, we have seen a significant change in the morale of our people. We have seen a massive rise in folks seeking counseling due to the uncertainty, and we are now starting to see our best employees seeking other employment. So today, I'm here representing the more than 500 employees at Moe Canada West and in particular, the 72 folks that work diligently at our Surrey processing plant on 152nd Street. For those of you that don't know, the Surrey processing plant was an $8.2 million investment in Surrey only 3 years ago. It was designed to provide value-added products for what we saw as a growing business. So when I describe value added to you, the Surrey plant takes the salmon, it makes it into fillets and portions for grocery stores, and then we sell it across Canada and down into California for places like Walmart and Target. In 2020, this little plant in Surrey produced just shy of 30 million meals, again, without one workplace exposure to COVID. We are here, we have been seeking and we continue to seek certainty for our people and for our business. This minister and the government, by their actions and by their silence, continue to demonstrate a complete lack of respect for the people of Vancouver Island, the folks in Surrey, and we need this to change very quickly as real damage has happened and will continue to happen. So we're seeking today to inform this group and appreciate all of you being here, seeking to inform this group and look for your support in trying to help us mitigate the damages that are happening today, both in Surrey and across Vancouver Island. So thank you very much. I will pass it on to, I think I'm passing it on to Ravi.
Thanks, Dean. Really well said. Thanks, John, for leading this, and obviously thank you to Anita for facilitating. My name is Ravi Johal. I am the General Manager of Surrey Cold Refrigerated Storage. Surrey Cold has been in business for over 20 years, and 15 of those have been here in Surrey. We are the temporary home for a lot of the farm salmon that is processed on the island. So we're responsible for warehousing and distributing it throughout North America and beyond. We handle around 10 million pounds of farm salmon every month. I employ 35 full-time employees. Most of them call Surrey their home. A lot of them either immigrated here or, like myself, born and raised here, and we just never left. It's been extremely difficult 12 months for us, as Dean touched on, having to deal with his pandemic. Because we handle so much food, we were deemed an essential service very early on. And kudos to my team, they took that responsibility very seriously, ensured they came in, day out, to do their jobs, so the food supply chain was minimally impacted. Every day we're worried about catching the virus and taking it home to our kids, our spouses, or our elderly parents. So every day is already filled with a lot of anxiety and a lot of hand sanitizer. And then to have to come into work and field questions from my team on this decision by the Liberal government was obviously very discouraging. To go from being an essential service to then being told a third of us may longer not be needed, it was very disappointing. And I think for myself, the most disappointing part was just the lack of communication and dialogue prior to this decision. My job as a leader is to protect the jobs of my staff, and I take that responsibility very seriously. But it's difficult to do that when I feel like my own government is working against me. So while I wish we were having this discussion 6 months ago, I am glad that we're having it now, and hopefully we can use this forum to inform and educate everybody on the topic, and encourage our politicians and key decision makers to take the time to review the information and make logical, fact-based decisions going forward. So thank you again for everybody that's on. And I'm going to pass it over to Josh over at Aquapac.
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. Appreciate the intro. Thanks, Anita and Surrey Board of Trade and John Paul and BC Salmon Farmers for allowing me to share a few words about our business here in Surrey and the impact this decision is going to have on us. My name is Josh Pomona, and I'm the CEO of Aquapac Industries and our group of companies here in British Columbia. A little background on our business. This year, we actually celebrate our 35th anniversary. Aquapac started in Surrey 35 years ago, trying to help the aquaculture industry find a solution to transport fresh salmon to market. So this industry is really the birthplace for our business. Since those humble beginnings, our business has continued to grow alongside the industry. We continue to provide cost-effective, high-performance installation solutions for packaging and construction throughout the BC market. We now have 3 locations through BC, one in Vancouver Island and 2 in Surrey, the 2 in Surrey employ 130 full-time jobs right now. So of our business, aquaculture is still our largest segment of our business. It accounts for 25% of our annual revenues. Our business in general is very integrated with the industry as well. We, aside from providing packaging for transportation, we're also providing construction products to support the building of feed barges, flotation for their pens, panels for coolers and freezers for the processors. So we're very integrated into all aspects of the aquaculture business, and it impacts all aspects of our business. So this decision has left a lot of uncertainty with our staff. They're really concerned about what the future of our business holds. Just last week during our Q1 town halls, I fielded several questions from shop floor employees asking about what's going to happen. As the leader of our business, I can't give them an answer that gives them any comfort, and that to me is a big concern. For our business, our leadership, our ownership, really the big fear is the unknown. We don't really know what the future of this business is. And, with the roadblocks that we seem to be facing, we have concerns about the future of the industry in this province. So for us at the moment, we can't make investment decisions on capital, real estate, staffing. Product innovation is a big part of our strategic plan, and we're not sure, how to navigate those waters at the moment. So for us, it feels like we're driving a car, but we're stuck in neutral, and that's a scary thing, when we're responsible for people's jobs and livelihoods. So our hope is that through these conversations and understanding the broader impact of these decisions, that we can hopefully find some common ground and make sure that we can continue to progress this industry.
So, and Ravi and Dean, so just a quick wrap up. You can find all of this at bcsalmonfarmers.ca/Surrey. There's our report, there's content to share, there are letters that you can write, MPs that you can reach out to. We'll note that we are meeting with MP Dhaliwal on the 19th. That's good news. That'll probably be the first real engagement we've had with anyone in government about the consequences of this decision. So we thank him for giving us this opportunity. Just last point, because I know we're going to get to questions. We're way over time. Let's understand what we're asking for here. Michelle, if you can go to the next slide. We've never said that we're asking the government to reverse this decision. It went through a process, by all accounts, an incredibly flawed process, but it made its decision. What we're asking for the government is to give this decision an appropriate consideration, and that can start actually with stopping the clock. To make, as I said earlier, a decision that really needs 3 to 5 years to work itself through so that you minimize damage to people and to animals. You have to give it the time that it needs, and you have to have information at the table. So we're asking for 3 things. Time, give the decision the time it needs. Table, let's get everyone together around a table so we can do this in an orderly manner that's informed. That's not a new concept. It's been done before. Our industry is really good at it. Minister Heyman yesterday talked a bit about how good we are at that. We can do this. We can actually figure out a way to transition forward in that area in a manner that actually minimizes the impact on the people at the heart of this decision. We can do it, but we have to make sure that we complete the transfer of the salmon that are available, ready to go to the farms, a final transfer if you wish to call it. The companies have consulted with local First Nations on it. There is an opposition to a final transfer of salmon by those nations in that area, in those territories where those farms are situated. We can do it, and we can have a conversation about the future. Okay, otherwise what you're looking at is well over 200 million meals going to waste, not to mention the jobs that are being lost. So we can choose order over disorder. We can choose bringing people together versus driving people apart. Okay, we can choose policy over politics. Let's try that for a change. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And just a reminder to everyone, if you do have a question, please put it in the chat function. For any media that are on the call, you can also input your questions into the chat function. John, just to reiterate, if you can, or refer on any of your colleagues if you wish, if the decision is not paused in the near future, how many jobs will be lost in Surrey?
That is a hard question to answer, and I know that folks are really interested in the answer. I'll say that right now at the processing stage, and Dean can add if he wishes, we're beginning to see certainly shift shortages. We're starting to see the impact on some of the direct workers. We've calculated that there are 341 direct jobs associated with aquaculture. I don't know if they're all to be lost. I don't know the number. All I know is, and because the decision, Anita, is not immediate in terms of its impacts, it's over a period of time. The salmon that is in the market from those farms will come in, but ultimately over time, then you'll start to see the reduction in supply. When you have 25% of the supply gone, you are going to have a significant impact. And it's not necessarily 25% lost production, 25% lost jobs. As you know, the economy doesn't function that way. Doug is here, our economist. He may have a few points that he could add here. Doug.
And while Doug is coming on, what would be the impact then over a 10-year period on jobs and businesses in Surrey and even on Vancouver Island? Hi, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. So as John pointed out, we've tried to give a sense of what the economic footprint is of the sector within Surrey. We do not have definitive answers as to the number of jobs that will be lost. That's going to play out over the next 2 years as the Discovery Islands decision takes effect. What we have pointed out in the presentation is the number of jobs that are at risk. And we won't know until, 2 years down the road just how deep the damage has been. But it's, people, jobs are at risk. People are fearful of losing their jobs. And unfortunately, uncertainty prevails because of the minister's decision. We've tried to give a sense of how important this decision will be and how it will affect folks in Surrey potentially. We don't have definitive answers yet as to what the totals will be until 2 years down the road. Then we'll know.
I wanted to ask about the Indigenous populations that have been working within the salmon farming industry, and especially in the advent of UNDRIP and, both levels of government, the province and the federal government, making that commitment. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Every job matters. Every business matters. What is the impact on jobs within the Indigenous communities that work in this industry? Do you have that information?
Don't have the specific numbers again. Sorry to disappoint on that one as well, but there are quite a few Aboriginal and Indigenous people working in the industry. In as well those areas where this decision takes immediate impact, primarily with the Wewakai, Wewakam, and Quaker nations and other nations in the area. But Anita, it's the most important part of our business. These partnerships, these relationships, whether it's with the Ahousaht on the West Coast or the Ahazat Chinnikint up north on the northwest coast, or the Kwasala Nakwadah, or the Kitasoo up on the north coast, or the Clawitsis down just north of Campbell River. It's it's an ongoing burgeoning relationship that I think is really exciting and really important. These are opportunities in those communities that are in terms of good quality jobs year round as opposed to seasonal employment, benefits for families, the opportunity to work in the marine environment, which is so important, the opportunity to be involved in conservation activities. It's a real important fit, and we see that those connections and those opportunities for Indigenous people only will expand. In fact, it has to, and we're all very committed to that.
John, critics indicate that salmon farming is not part of the blue economy, the blue innovation strategy, that salmon farming is impacting our oceans. What do you say to those group of people?
Well, interestingly, so salmon farming is, as we saw earlier, an extraordinarily big producer of food on the West Coast. Food production is about half of the employment in the blue economy. So we kind of feel like we are in the blue economy, and the blue is ocean. It's not brown, which is land. We've adapted, we've innovated, we've improved, we've invested in enormous amounts of technological enhancements right through the whole supply chain, whether it's feed, whether it's animal welfare, you name it. It's happening all the time. And we're experimenting here and globally with our global reach, because that's the cool thing about aquaculture in BC is that you've got enormous global reach with many of the companies here, and you've got huge proliferation of locally developed business to support those activities. And the one thing that I've also learned in the time that I've been in the industry is that we're talking about people who love and care deeply about the environment. One point why they care so deeply about the environment is because you have to sustain it and protect it in order to derive a benefit. In order to actually have success in business, you have to have success in the environment. And we're proud of the technological innovation that's already taken place over the last 10 years in particular. We wish the government would spend a little more time understanding the depth of technological innovation that's taking place. Sometimes we ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? Because it doesn't seem that this government is particularly interested in the actual problem. Because the solutions are already out there. So I would say that when it comes to blue economy industry, you will not find anything bluer than salmon farming.
If the federal government were to make a decision, a momentous decision about pausing their decision, especially in the middle of a pandemic, what would be the solutions? Land-based commercial farming, transitioning those salmon farms that have been impacted. What is the future, and what does science tell us?
I think the future is available to us if we give it an opportunity. The time is the future part. The time gives you the chance to have a conversation about things that maybe you haven't even thought of. A few things, though, that we have thought of is, well, what if we had a bit of time to figure out what we might do with that lost production? How might we help the individuals that are going to be directly impacted? Can we have a deeper conversation with nations and with the communities about what the future might look like? Are there things that we can do, alternate technologies, alternate production technologies that we can start to experiment or look at in the area? Are there other ancillary benefits that we could offer? And by the way, you talk about land-based or other forms of closed containment. It's interesting, I find that people say that we're opposed to all of these things when we're the ones inventing them. It's like telling Thomas Edison or whomever, hey, you know what? You're not really a fan of the light bulb. What the hell are you talking about? We're working on these things. They don't happen overnight. Not like a light. You can't flick the switch. So we're working on it. It'd be nice to work in partnership with government. But the one thing that's not going to happen with transition, Anita, and innovation, one thing that makes it really difficult to do that is when you drive people away, when you drive people out, when you tell them they're not welcome, when you tell them we don't think you're even important enough to talk to, when you don't respond to correspondence that's 6 months old. when you don't even get back to mayors, when you don't even get back to provincial ministers. You know, when you have a minister that makes a decision that's not even the advice of her own department. So you can't transition and take a leap with anyone who wants you to take a leap. So we're just saying, get real, get with us, and let's figure this out together.
Have you had a chance to speak to the city of Surrey and our mayor and council and their economic development department?
Not yet. We have had some engagement with the Economic Development Department. Doug in particular has had some good back and forth with them. Be very happy to have that conversation with the mayor and council.
What is, with this decision then, what is really the growth potential of the industry in terms of GDP and jobs and really the whole labor impact is what I'm looking for?
I think I'm really glad you asked me that question, because this one I can get quite specific with, and I'm hoping Michelle takes a cue and puts in the chat box our We Are Ready campaign. So this is one of the saddest things about this, is that the industry really came together in the fall, trying to present to government and to anyone that would listen when we were all in the dumps, and we're still there, by the way, economically. What can we do to help? Particularly in depressed communities where there is, in vulnerable communities where there is real risk with forestry, mining, commercial fishing, and other significant declines. And some of those jobs aren't coming back in those sectors. We were seeing ourselves as an industry on the rise, as an opportunity, particularly for Indigenous and vulnerable communities. And we produced a really robust economic plan with Doug and his team and with everyone. We were actually forecasting a doubling of employment by 2050, up to about 11,000 family supporting jobs and even beyond. Thank you, Michelle, she's just posted it. We were looking at doubling our GDP from 1.6 well into the threes. We were looking at significant increases in tax revenue for government. We have our approach endorsed by the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance and other local chambers. But we actually had a plan for sustainable growth. The kind of sustainable growth that leads to investment in the technologies that people out there say we need to invest money into. Okay, so the best way to get investment is to create certainty, partnerships, and get a plan. And so we were really excited about it. And so when the decision came, we were unfortunately really able to be very quick in showing the economic impact, because we just took Doug's numbers and that we'd done through very detailed survey work and just wound them back. So we went from in November having this really exciting plan for growth that we wanted to talk to government about, to having an economic impact report that took that growth and totally inverted it. That's where we are right now. And that's where we're headed.
So my last question or query is the Surrey Board of Trade, we will continue advocating for a pause for this decision, especially as we know that it's going to impact jobs and businesses within our city, and that matters. And certainly, I wanted to ask you, there's so many that want to help as well. And we need everyone to resonate and spread the word about the economic impact within our city, and especially to even our local government. I know our provincial government, Minister Kalon, has been working on it as well. And so now, in the end, it's, up to the private sector to ensure the education, but also to instigate change. So what is your next step then in the journey, John, in terms of speaking to government and for those critics that say that salmon farming is bad for the ocean, it's impacting, other salmon wildlife, what's the next step in the journey?
Well, to answer the last part first. Take a dive with Kelly when you're asking the question about is it bad for the environment, or at least get him to send you some really great video of what he's doing down there. I want to also thank local government, particularly the governments north of Campbell River and Campbell River. Mayor Dukas is on the line. They've been fantastic. I want to thank the BC government. In fact, our economic damage report that we did following the decision was verified through their analysts. I want to thank Minister Kalon for his efforts, because I think the government, the provincial government, is deeply shocked and alarmed at the rash divisiveness that this decision has created and caused in non-Indigenous and in Indigenous communities. It's a real head scratcher, especially when you can't get your letters responded to. Go to that website, bcsalmonfarmers.ca/Surrey. There's all sorts of tools and ways to get active. Talk to your members of parliament. One of them is on this call right now, as I understand. There is a way forward here to make sure that we can protect people in Surrey from this rash decision. You know how you do that? You make a rash decision unrash. You can actually fix those things. There is a cure for those things, but not if you're not willing to explore it. And we're just saying, government, go down the library that says under C for common sense, pull it off the shelf and come talk to us.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending the Surrey Town Hall this afternoon, focused on the salmon farming industry in Surrey and in British Columbia. Thank you to the BC Salmon Farmers Association, to John, and to all of our panelists right here from Surrey, British Columbia. And remember, together with the South Asian Business Association and the Surrey Board of Trade, we're trying to make Surrey an opportunity city. Stay tuned for more information on this industry. Thank you for attending. Make it a great business day.